All right, diesel electric road locomotive operation instructions number 12A, Pennsylvania Railroad, section 12, class BF4 or Baldwin locomotive of the works, freight 4 unit. General data locomotive Baldwin locomotive of the works, 6,000 horsepower, 1563 gear ratio, 635 miles an hour. 2A, 2B, 2 per trucks. Trucks per unit, 2 axles per unit, 2 truck traction motors per truck, 2 wheel diameter 42 inches, general size 6.5, 12 inches, Westinghouse 24R and L. Maximum overall dimensions 14 foot 10.5 inches height, 10 foot 6 inches in width, and 54 and 4.5 inches for the A, and 52 and 7 inches for the B unit. 2,630 pounds for the total weight A, and weight of the drivers 266,300 pounds for the A unit. B unit 257,300 pounds to 257,300 pounds. Fuel oil capacity 1,200 gallons. Small sand capacity 20 cubic feet. General diesel engine make model Baldwin locomotive 608 SC horsepower governed at RPM 1,500 horsepower 625 RPMs inline 4 cycle 8 number cylinders bore stroke 14 3 1/4 by 15 1/2 idle speed 250 RPMs 1476852 3. Firing order number of the engines per unit 190 gallons per engine, 325 gallons per engine. Diesel engine same as prescribed in section 4 class B. Put 1 diesel engine governor control same as described in section class BP1. Diesel engine cooling system. The cooling system is a system with several engines within the locomotive. They're similar to the independent of each other. Similar to and independent of each other. The water circulated through the cooling system may be the central fecal water pump at the front end of the engine. The pump that circulates water around the engine cylinder liner through the jacket into the engine water manifold, which the pipe through the cooling radiator is located overhead of the rear of each of the unit. After the cooling radiator is located over the head at the rear of each unit. After the passing through the radiator, the water flow through the oil of the cooling heat exchanger located at the front end of the engine and the back of the pump. The expansion tag pump located overhead of the front end of the engine, connected to the suction side pump of the radiator's engine water manifold, are vented into the expansion tank of the radiator. Bypass connection engine water manifold. The suction line with the water pump. The butterfly valve located in the pipe connection of the engine water manifold directs the flow of the water radiator bypass. The pipe rapidly increase the cool water temperature during the water up period. The butterfly valve is operated with the main reserve air pressure through the thermostatically controlled air valve cylinder A manually. Valve located on the left side of the diesel engine near the front end of the normally seat with the automatic position permits the manual control of the butterfly valve. With the valve in the automatic position, the butterfly valve is under thermostatic control. While the valve is in manual position, the butterfly valve assumes the position for the bypassing minimum amount of water. Water temperature may be checked with the dial type. The thermometer located on the side wall of the opposite engine control panel. The temperature of the cooling water will vary between 150 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit under the normal conditions. Shutters and controlling cooling water temperature are shuttered with the main reserve air pressure through the magnet valve. The shutters are fully open at all times. The cooling fans are running except when you have the dynamic braking. During the dynamic braking of the cooling fan is drawing cooling air through the resistor grid. The one section shutter only thermostatically controlled with the cooling water of the radiators is required. Air from the main reserve through the 17-pound reducing valve. The thermostatically controlled air valve gradually stay operated with the pneumatic control. Pneumatic switching for the control of the shuttering of the magnet valve that also speeds the motor and driven the cooling fans. The cooling fans operate the different two rates of speed depending on the cooling water, the temperature, supplied with the power of the main generator. Except when the dynamic braking is being used, then they are supplied with the power of the traction motor connection across the dynamic braking grid. Speed is controlled by the amount of braking current being developed. 3-position fan shutter with the control switch located on the engine control panel that operates as follows. Off, the fan will not operate with the shutters are closed. On, shutters are open. Fans operate only with the thermostatic speed control. Automatic operates the fans and shutters controlled by temperature switches. The shutter operation mechanism is located with the bulkheads at each of the end of the radiator compartment in the rear of the unit. The gradually state and pneumatic temperature switches together with a reducing valve at the filter and located with the rear bulkhead of the radiator compartment. The separate water temperature switch located with the front end of the diesel engine set at 190 degrees Fahrenheit will activate the engine shutdown solenoid valve to stop the engine when the engine cooling water temperature becomes excessive. Operation of the water temperature switch will sound the alarm throughout the locomotive and will light the hot engine light on the engine of the control panel with the diesel engine involved. The radiator fan stop light located with the engine control with the panel light with the radiator fan circuit with the open due with the overload. While using the dynamic braking, the alarm will sound throughout the locomotive by any one of the radiator fan stop lights will light. The cooling system may be filled with through filling connection on the either side of each of the unit over the front of the number 2 truck at the filling connection of the roof over the expansion track tank. Water level in the cooling system is indicated by the glass water level located with the gas expansion tank. Water must be shown in the gauge glass at all times the diesel engine is running. If the locomotive is left standing, the diesel engine is shut down. Where the danger is freezing, standby heater may be used, as all water should be drained from the system. Standby heater on the heat of the class locomotive is similar to that described in section 9 of the class FF3, but except that only one circular breaker is instead of two is located on the standing adjacent to the heater drain edge of the cooling system, open with the drain valve located with the drain line adjacent, water pump suction line with the drain valve and the drain line with the cab heater piping. Diesel engine lubricating oil system, same as described in section 6 of the class B3. Diesel engine fueling oil system, same as described in section 6 class B3 with the following exemptions. As there are only one diesel engine in each of the unit of the fueling oil system, entirely independent, two-side glass gauges. One near the top, one near the bottom is located at the right side of the fuel tank. The upper glass of the gauge is only provided on the left side of the tank. Two emergency fuel cutoff valves are located under the unit with the suction line with the supply tank of the one left on the left side of the unit of the diesel engine, one on the right side of the unit for the standby heater. Both valves may be closed and pulling, and even the pulling rings on the unit located as follows. One in the cab back of the engine man position. A units only. One in the hoister position with the B units only. Two on the outside above the fuel tank on each side of the unit. Electrical power system. Each unit contains the diesel engine 1500 horsepower. The main generator is connected to the diesel engine, coupling with the breeze of the floor traction motor, the radiator cooling fan motor with the traction motor blower, the mechanically driven from the diesel engine. Auxiliary generator exciter. The auxiliary generator exciter set is mounted on the belt driven main generator. The auxiliary main generator is used to charge the storage battery of the unit to supply low voltage power. The exciter supplies power to the main generator field windings, especially mounted to maintain constant power output with the main generator control stand. Same as described in section 4 of the class BP1, except with the reverse lever that incorporate the dynamic braking position ahead of the forward position with the reverse lever in the dynamic braking position. The dynamic braking switch is on position, moving on the throttle lever to control the amount of the dynamic braking current. Your traction motor, each of the unit with the four traction motors, one of each of the axle gear through the spear of the 15 to 63 gear ratio of the two traction motors on each of the truck are air cooled with a single blower. The traction motors are permanently connected to the series power wheel number 1, number 3, and traction motor compromises number 1, traction motor circuit number 2, number 4, traction motor compromises number 2 circuit. Transition consists of the two sets of fielding shutting, which takes place automatically with the 20 and 30 miles an hour, respectively. Backward transition also automatic. Electric equipment cabinet. Electric equipment cabinet is located near the generator end of the engine room. On each of the unit contains the following apparatus: two main power contactors operated with the air pressure through the magnetic valve marked P1 and P2. Each traction motor field shunting contactors marked M1, M3, M5, M7 for number 1 traction motor, M2, M4, M6, M8 for the number 2 traction motor circuit. One reverse operated with the air pressure for the magnet valves. One ground relay for the mark with the GR for the ground, with the high voltage circuit with the manual reset button located on the engine control panel. Can be cut out in the emergency opening sealed circuit with the brake mounted on the engine control panel. One control contactor marked with the CR, one control relay CR1, two engine starting armature contractors marked G1 and G2, unstarted protective relay PT, two wheel slip relays WS1 for the number 1 traction motor, WS2 for the number 2 traction motor, an emergency engine stops contactor ES for the one-man motor shield shunting relay RFR, 4 generator field contactor relays marked GF1, GF2, GF11, GF12, 5 exciter field contactors EF1, EF2, EF3, EF4, EF5, 1 power control contactor marked FR, 2 traction motor field shunting relays marked FS1, FS2, 6-man motor contactors F1, F2, F3, F4, F5, F6. F1 incorporates the overload relay while the manual resets the button located on the engine control panel. 1 signal relay marked SG, 1 time delay movement magnet valve marked DTV supplies air to the time delay relays. 2 time delay relays marked TD1, TD2 are operated with the control standing with the cooling fans. 1 fire alarm relay marked FIR01 battery charging contactor marked A. 1 reverse contact relay marked RC. 1 voltage relay marked RVR, 1 light circuit breaker marked B on the units only with the 25 amp to 2 traction motor cutout switches marked TMC number 1 for the number 1, TMC number 2 for the number 2 traction motor circuit, 1 control cutout circuit breaker 50 amperes, 1 battery switch, 1 auxiliary generator circuit breaker 100 amperes, 1 cam switch, controlled magnet valves controlled with the CSM monitoring switch of the CSB braking position, 2 dynamic braking contactors marked BR1 and BR2. One brake warning light, BRWR, protective brake regulating, PBR, one brake light regulating valve, relay mark, DBR, various resistor and shunts, engine control panel mounted with an electrical equipment cabinet, left side of the ASL B units on the rear of the cabinet, and adjacent left ASL A units contain the following: one battery charge indicator, one ground relay cutout, circuit breaker with 15 amp field, and one position ground indicating light, the hot engine indication light, dynamic braking override indication light, radiator fan stop indication light, engine start push button number 1, engine start push button number 2, fan reset button pushed and reset F1 contactor, ground relay reset push button, isolation engine switch in idle position. The position will run only with the idle speed, will not provide with the power of the locomotive with running position. The engine is under control of the throttle lever, fan and shotter control switch, the 3-position switch, dynamic brake cutout switch when the on position continue. Please the braking control circuit when the off position cuts out the dynamic braking over the unit. Engine control, engine stop, circuit breaker 15 amperes, power cut, circuit breaker 15 amperes. Auxiliary generator field, circuit breaker 35 amperes, exciter field, circuit breaker 35 amperes, control circuit breaker box. Control circuit breaker box is located in left control of the standing operating cab of the A unit containing the following: thermal overload 15 amp of the circuit breaker. The control establishes multiple unit power load control through the throttle reverse level through the reverse and field contactor complete with the circuit of the master control magnet. The cab signal completes the group of the cab signal, defroster fans, market lights, rear backup lights, number of the instrument panel light, lights, headlight, emergency engine stop. The attendant call push button switch is located on the control circuit breaker on the box. A unit, the control circuit breaker on the back, is located in the hostiler position, and B units are containing with the following: thermal overload 15 ampere control circuit. Control market lights number 1 and headlight number 1 and headlight number 2 and market lights number 2 and emergency engine stop, engine's position. Following are located with the Engineman position, headlight switch with full off and dim positions. Gauge light dimming, rheostat, cab heater, fan circuit breaker, EA amp for the cab heater and rheostat, the dynamic braking warning light. The Fireman position, the following are located with the Fireman position, cab heater, fan circuit with the breaker, the 15 amp for the cab heater with the rheostat, the 4 indicating light of the fire for fire alarm system 1, fire alarm system 1 for each unit. Load control, same as described in section 4 of the class BP1. Power knockout switch, same as described in section 4 class BP1. Master control magnet valve, same as described in section 4 class BP1. Throttle unloaded magnet valve, throttle unloading magnet valves are located with the left side of the wall. Engine room adjacent with the diesel engine are designated with the TV1, TV2, the TV1 actuated wheel slip relay, operating ground relay, operating with the placing isolation switch idle. TV2 actuated placing throttle in the idle position, actuating either the valve the cause of the diesel engine to return with the remaining idling speed. Engine shutdown solenoid valve, the same as described in section 4 class BP1, mounted on the front end of the diesel engine. Auxiliary equipment stand, the cabin signal of the train phone, the equipment is located on the stand of the rear end of the A unit's only with the 50 amp of the circuit breaker with the motor generator set located on the left side of the stand panel. On the rear of the stand include the E amp of the train phone circuit with the breaker with the 225 amp of the lighting circuit breaker. Transfer switch for supplying 32 volt power with the cab signal train phone headlight switch with the motor generator set 1/2 of the battery depending on the position. Panel on the right side of the house and the standby heater with the controls include the circuit breaker with the starting position button, the standby lighting transfer switch, and there are transformers mounted on the front stand. On B, the units of the standby heater with controls are mounted on an individual stand at the rear of the unit. The lighting circuit breaker is located with the electrical equipment cabinet, and the standby the lighting transfer switch to the transformer are located on the top electrical equipment cabinet. Dynamic braking, the braking system is used with the class of locomotive to control with the throttle lever when your reverse lever is in a dynamic position in order to complete with the dynamic braking circuit. The dynamic brake cutout switch located on the engine control panel on each of the unit must be on the on position. When the throttle lever is in advance, the dynamic braking, the large radiator shutter will close the open one while remaining in the closed position, directing the flow of the air through the dynamic braking grids. Operating the shutter's limit switch located on the rear bulkhead of the radiator compartment, thereby completing the dynamic braking circuit. Controlling the traction motor field with the strength of the function of the main generator output with verified the change of the speed of the diesel engine augmented by the action of the carbon static load regulator. Dynamic breaker resisting grids are cooled with the cooling fans which are powered by the braking current through the connection across one of the dynamic braking grids while these are the dynamic braking grids. Alright, compressed air, same as described in section 4 class BP1 with the following exemption. Main reserve air pressure used to furnish the air supply through the throttle of control of the actuator. The main reserve air pressure used to operate the radiator shut through the separate reducing set valve set with 1.7 pounds to operate the radiator fan. Shutter controls a control air pressure pressure gauge is located below the A unit with one holster gauge handled with the P units. Main reserve air after cooler of the pipe between the number 1 and number 2 main reserve is located in the front of the fuel oil tank behind the front truck. Is is used to cool the air before it passes to the air system piping. The air brake system is the same as described in Section 6, Class B33, Locomotive Operation Inspection Preparation for Service. After the locomotive has been properly inspected, an electrical equipment cabinet for each of the units, see that all the switches and the circuit breakers are closed in the on position, engine man position in the control unit. See the throttle lever is in idle position, see the reverse lever in the off position, close the circuit breakers, see the emergency engine stop circuit breakers in the off position, engine man position, trailing unit, see the throttle is in idle position, see the reverse is removed. See that the control emergency engine stop circuit breakers in the off position as a holster position B unit. See the control emergency engine stop circuit breakers are in the off position. See the reverse lever is removed. See the throttle is in the idle position. See that the cutout cocks are closed and one of the reducing valve line the piping under the brake valve. Each diesel engine control panel place the engine stop with the circuit breaker on the on position. Alarm should be sounded. Note that the fuel oil pressure is indicated on the gauge. Press the engine start button to the position number 1. Hold it until the engine fires. At least 20 pounds lubricating oil pressure obtained. If the engine does not turn fast enough to start, the cranking speed can be increased by the pressing the engine start button number 2 while pushing the button number 1 and held in. Place isolation switch in run position. See the power cutout circuit breaker is in the on position. See the fan shutter control switch is in the automatic position. Close the auxiliary generator exciter field and circuit the brakes. Note the battery change indicator indication charge. See the dynamic brake cutout switch is in on the on position. Move the locomotive with the road operation. Move the locomotive. Place the foot on the dead man pedal. Release the air brake. Place the reverse lever in the forward reserve position as required. Move the throttle lever in the first notch position. Pause and load ammeter that indicates the current. The throttle lever should be advanced slowly to the position necessary to start the train. And starting the heavy train care must be exercised and proper to control slack after before accelerating. To apply the dynamic brake, move the throttle in the idle position. Place the reverse lever in the dynamic position. Dynamic braking position, move the throttle up at the first notch position, wait until the current flows, show the load ammeter, then advance the throttle lever to obtain the braking power required to use the care to properly control slack action. When used the dynamic braking, the current is indicated the load ammeter must be applied, limited to 750 amperes. Indicating light will lighting the current exceeding on any of the dynamic braking should not be used with the speed of above 50 miles an hour. Using the load ammeter, the division between the white and red scale of the load ammeter indicates the maximum permissible continuous current with the 925 amperes. Operating loads above 925 amperes are permissible only under any one of the is permissible under any one of the following limitation with the throttle levers wide open in position. 1,000 amperes at 30 minutes, 1,500 1,050 amperes 20 minutes, 1,175 amperes, 10 minutes, 1,325 at 5 minutes. If unable to operate below the maximum continuous rating after the operating at any one of the above the overload limitation, tonnage may be reduced to help obtain. Operation with low diameter. The necessary to operate with the low diameter with the throttle lever may be wide open, minimum continuous speed with 10.5 miles an hour in order to avoid overload. Operation speed below 10.5 miles an hour permissible under any with the following limitation with the throttle wide open position. 9.5, 30 minutes, 9 miles an hour, 20 minutes, 8 miles an hour, 10 minutes, 6.5 miles, 5 minutes. Isolating a diesel engine. Same as described in Section 4, Class B1. Putting of the diesel engine in the line. Section same as described in Section 4, Class B1. Emergency engine stop, same as described in Section Class 4, B1. Ground relay operation, same as described in Section 6, Class B3, except that the load ammeter is connected to the number 1 traction motor circuit, and then the number 1 traction motor circuit is cut out of the leading A unit. No indication will be given on the load ammeter. With number 2, the traction motor circuit, the cutout, and number 1 traction motor circuit, not the cutout load ammeter will be used with normal limitations. Engine stop warning light, same as described in Section 6, Class B3, following exemption, the radiator fan stopped, indicating light lit push with the fan reset push button with the engine control panel to reset the F1 contract with their normal panel control panels and shutter operation. Alright, notes. When attempting to start the diesel engine, if no fuel pressure at the time, to check the fuel pump, the running with the not check the engine stop, circuit breaker on the control panel, on the control cutout, circuit breaker, there's electrical equipment, the cabinet on, the battery switch is closed. If the fuel pump is running, check the fuel supply, emergency fuel cutoff valve, the fuel oil section line, the pump for the leaks. If the diesel engine does not rotate when the engine start push button is pressed, check the battery and switch is closed for the isolation switch in idle position, check the starting contact for the electrical equipment in the cabinet. If the diesel engine rotates but does not fire, check the overspeed stop, the reset with the necessary, check the oil speed supply and the engine governor with the diesel engine, the rotating seat, the position of the diesel engine, shut down the cylinder, moves out of the permit the free operation of the injector lay shaft. If the locomotive fails to move the diesel engine running with the throttle open, the folding checks that should be made. See the reverse lever in the proper position, brakes release. See the control circuit breaker in the cab control view unit is in the opposition. See the cutout cock in the air supply pipe at the control stand is open. Check the control reservoir gauge in the nose control unit. Check the position power of the cutout circuit breakers, exciter field circuit breakers, isolation switch on all the units. If locomotive is one or more of the diesel engine locomotive deliver power, the following checks should be made. To see the isolation switch at the running position, check the ground relays, reset the strip, check the control reservoir pressure, see that all the starting contactors are open, check the throttle pipe for the leakage, including connection between the units, and see the cutout blocks and throttle pipe are fully connected. Fully open. Check the exciter field with the circuit breaker with the power cutout with the circuit breaker on the engine control panel on the units affected. When the changing operating is before the proceeding to the end of the cutting, see the control circuit breaker in the cab is open. 7. When the low battery conditions, if the lead operating unit, the auxiliary generator, inoperative locomotive can be controlled with the operating cab of the units as follows: open control of the unit, open control cutout circuit breaker in the electrical equipment cabinet leading A, close the current circuit breaker, control circuit breaker in the cab leading A unit, close the control circuit breaker in the closed cutout cock in the air supply pipe to control stand on the trailing unit, close the control cutout contactor marked CR as an electrical equipment cabinet on the leading A unit as a flagging stick. And then there's notes, and then that is the end of the book. And we have, this has been Pennsylvania Diesel Electric Road Locomotives Operating Instructions for Locomotive Engineman and Firemen and Helpers.